What's up, y'all? About to go over a hip mobility snack today, targeting hip internal and external rotation. Reasons why we might do this routine is if our hips have been feeling a little stiff or achy, maybe that low back's a little stiff or achy too. This would be great as a primer before a lower body workout. You could even do this as a cool down with a lighter intensity after a lower body workout. And I think the best reason to do this is to promote joint health by getting some blood and nutrients deep in the hip capsule. And we're going to maintain our range of motion, which is really important as we age. All right, let's get into it. Starting off, we're going to lay on our back and we're going to work a little pelvic control. So the first part, I want you to take a big breath in, exhale. And with that exhale, start to push the small of your back, that low back, flat against the ground. Whole back should be touching the floor. And then try to lift that low back off the ground. Just the low back. We don't want to lift the butt cheeks or the shoulders or the upper back. And this would be an anterior pelvic tilt. And then we switch gears, start to push that low back flat again. And this would be a posterior pelvic tilt. I'm going to do 3 more reps of this, lifting that low back, holding, and then reverse, push that low back flat. And getting a little more familiar with this is going to help increase we get a deeper stretch whenever we start to target our hips later on. Last time, lift that low back off the ground. And then shifting gears one more time, push that low back flat and relax. Let's transition onto our sides into a sleeper position. We're just going to bring the knees up so our torso and our upper legs are at a 90-degree angle, and we're going to work 4 hip cars each hip. And this is going to all right, shifting to our sideline position. We want the knees up, so our torso and our upper legs are at a 90-degree angle. We got 4 reps of hip cars. Here we go, starting with that top leg. We're gonna drive the knee up towards our chest as high as we can. Feel that hip flexor working. Keep the knee close, start to lift away from the floor as much as we can. We hit that roadblock, we can't open up. We rotate, we try to scrape that heel up towards the ceiling and back behind us at the same time. Reaching back, scraping up. And then we slowly lower the whole leg down towards the ground, parachute down, stacking the legs back up. That's halfway, and then we reverse. Drive the heel back behind us. Whole leg starts to lift away from the floor, keeping that lower leg parallel with the ground. Don't let the heel lag behind. And then we rotate. We try to pull the knee back to the armpit. That heel will sweep back to the front. Closing down towards the ground. Finishing rep number 1, right into number 2. Pulling that knee up towards the chest. Making sure it's the hip working. We don't want to cave that spine forward. And then we slowly lift away from the floor as much as we can, hit that roadblock, and then we start to internally rotate, scraping that heel towards the ceiling and back behind us at the same time, reaching back. Feel that front outside hip working, slowly lowering down, stacking back up. And then we go back into extension, driving behind. Feel that glute, those hamstrings working. Make sure we don't push the belly button forward here. The whole leg works to lift away from the floor. Externally rotate, knees coming back to the armpit, staying close to the chest. And we're going into rep 3. An important thing when we're working on our cars, we want the whole exercise to be at the same pace. No glitches, no fast forwards. And whenever we speed up and we want to get through a certain part of the car. It's probably a good highlight there. It's telling you, hey, maybe I need to work on this a little bit more. Last rep, best rep. That hip should be burning at this point. Feeling that hip working, it's cooking. Reaching back, slowly lowering down. Feel that backside working. Slowly stack up. Cue I like to think about is that we're a pestle and mortar, right? Table side block. All right, that was our 4th rep. Let's flip it over and work the other side. All right, we're in our sleeper position, sideline, making sure we're at that 90 degrees with our upper legs and our torso. 4 reps, this right hip. Starting with that knee driving up to the chest as much as we can, keeping it close to our body. We start to move away from the floor, the abduction, and this is internal rotation. Scrape that heel towards the ceiling and back behind us. Reaching back, can't reach back anymore. Slowly lowering the whole leg, and then we stack back up. Going right back into that second half, driving behind us. Lifting away. Feel that outside hip working. And then we rotate, pull that knee back to the armpit. Squeezing up, keep it close as we lower. And then we come back to that stack position. If you want, you can place that top hand right on that outside hip or that upper pelvis. And it's a good way to get some feedback if the body wants to start to spill into that lower back and the spine, you can kind of feel that movement happening. That'll happen a lot whenever we reach back into extension here. We'll want to arch that low back to try to fake a little bit more extension with the hip. So be careful of that. We want the hip doing all the work. And the same thing happens in flexion. People won't think about trying to fold forward to try to fake more flexion, but it's the spine coming towards the knee rather than that upper leg coming towards the torso. If that makes sense. Warming up, really feeling that hip capsule burning now, getting some good blood flow deep in that hip joint. I think that's rep number 3. One more, best rep. Here we go. Slowly start to lift away from the floor. We hit that roadblock, internally rotate, scrape the heel towards the ceiling and back behind us as high as we can. Reaching back, hit that roadblock, can't reach back anymore. We parachute down towards the ground, and then we stack back up. Finishing this half rep, we drive that heel back behind us. Glutes and hamstrings working. Keep that extension behind us as we lift away from the floor. Rotate externally, pulling that knee back to the armpit, keeping it close to the chest, lowering down, and finishing. Good job. We're going to transition into our 90-90 position, working our lead leg, which is my right leg right here. Whenever we get into this position, we want this thigh kind of right in front of us, and then that knee is at a 90-degree angle. This back hip, ideally it's out to our side, and then we can make another kind of 90-degree here with our hip and our knee. But if that's too intense of a stretch, you can always slide it up. Another modification, we can slide a yoga block underneath that lead thigh or a pillow if this position is too intense of a stretch to begin with. So we're going to start in this 90-90 position. We're going to think about staying tall through our torso and then drive our belly button over this lead thigh. Stay tall, and we should start to feel a big stretch kind of deep on the backside of that right hip. Once we're there, we can use our arms to help support that upper body and stay in that stretch. When we're here in the stretch, we just want to think about big, slow breaths, 3 to 4 seconds in through our nose, and then 3 to 4 seconds out through our mouth. Feel free to press pause, and you can hang out here to up to 2 minutes if you wanted, but we're gonna get into the pushing and pulling. Starting with one more big inhale, exhale, trap air in the lower abdominals, embrace. Arms start to drive into the ground. Back leg starts to squeeze the floor. We're still in that stretch, and now the whole body's engaged. We're gonna start to press this lead leg into the ground. Light 10% effort. There's a weight scale underneath that lead leg. It just says 10% heavier. And then we increase that intensity to 20. Feeling everything on stretch earlier, it's lighten up. Pressing down 30. Ramping up to 40. It's starting to burn back there. 50. 60. 70. Greatest, safest effort. Max intent. Pressing that lead leg into the ground. Try to break the floor underneath you. Pressing, pressing. All from that tissue deep on the backside of that hip. Driving that lead leg into the ground. 5, 4, 3. Staying in this position. Slowly start to wind down the effort. We're at 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Stay in the stretch now, reverse. Try to peel that heel off the floor. Rotate deeper into this stretch. You should feel that intensity come from the inside thigh. Lift that leg off the ground. If you're at your end range, you're not going to be able to. That's the intent. Lift, lift. All from the inside thigh. Keep lifting. Arms are pressing into the floor. Back legs working. Core's tight. 3, 2, 1. Slowly let that intensity go. If you can, sink a little bit deeper into that stretch. Big, slow breaths. Very good. We can slowly walk ourselves out of that stretch, and then we're going to target this trail leg in the 90-90. So now we're going to work the trail leg in the 90-90 position. So one way to get a good stretch on this front hip is by driving that front hip towards the wall in front. And right there, will kind of start to feel that deep on the front side, and then it kind of spirals out. Some people, this might be too intense. We can always lean out to the side away from that trail leg, and then we can kind of get the same stretch right there, maybe a little bit more on the top side, but yeah, on the front inner hip. Some people need a more intense stretch, so you can sit upright, drive that hip forward, and then you can start to rotate the torso towards that trail leg, and then you could even think about side bending and bringing that shoulder to that back ankle. Find whatever position works best for you. Once you find that stretch, you could use the arms to help support the body and maintain that stretch. And then big, slow breaths in the stretch, 3 to 4 seconds in through the nose, and then 4 seconds out through the mouth. Keeping that hip forward. Feel free to press pause and hang out in this passive stretch for 2 minutes. We're going to start the pushing and pulling. One more big breath in. Exhale, trapping air in the abdominals. Arms pressing into the floor, locking that upper body in position. This lead leg driving down. Now with everything engaged, we're going to start to press this back leg into the floor. Hopefully you feel that intensity coming from the front side of that hip, maybe kind of wrapping on the underside too. And then we build 20%, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Greatest, safest effort. Max intent, trying to drive this leg into the floor. If the floor wasn't there, it would look like I'm doing this. I'm sweeping back to the front. Max effort, press, press, press. Keeping that hip in the stretch. We got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly wind down from 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Now reverse. Try to rotate and peel that heel off the floor, all from this outside hip. We're staying in the stretch. Our body hasn't moved. We're just trying to pick that heel up off the ground. Feel the outside of that body working to try to pick that heel up off the floor. That weight scale reaches 0 underneath this leg. Lift, lift, lift. Arms are working, lead legs working. 4, 3, 2, 1. Parachute back down. See if you can sink a little bit deeper into that stretch. Now we gotta even it out. So now we're gonna do external rotation for the left side. It's our lead leg in the 90-90. Remember, we wanna start nice and tall through our torso, and we drive the belly button over that thigh. We're targeting a deep stretch. Once we find that, we can use our arms to help support our upper body in that stretch. And then we focus on our breathing, 3 to 4 seconds in through our nose, 4 seconds out through our mouth. Big, slow breaths. If you need more time here, feel free to press pause, but we're getting into the work, pushing and pulling. Starting with one more big inhale, exhale, trap air in that core, arms pressing into the floor, back leg squeezing the floor. Now the whole body's rock solid. We use that intensity to press this lead leg into the ground. Start with 10% effort first. Feel everything on stretch light up, and then we build 20%, 30 pressing, staying tall, 40, 50, 60, 70, greatest, safest effort, max intent. Drive that lead leg into the ground. Feel that work coming from deep on the back side of that left hip. Pressing, pressing, staying tall. Try to break the concrete underneath our leg. Driving down. 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly wind down, staying in that stretch. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Now reverse, try to peel that heel up off the floor. Bring it towards your chest. If you're at your in range, you're not gonna be able to, but try. See if you can make that inside thigh cramp. You're trying to lift. Stay deep in that stretch. Backside's working, arms are still working, core's tight. Keep lifting. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Parachute. Back down to the floor. Relax, letting that intensity go. Big, slow breath. See if you can drive that belly button maybe a little bit further over that lead leg. All right, now we gotta work that trail hip. Working our right leg, our trail leg. First, we're trying to target a stretch on the front side of this hip. So sitting up tall, pushing that hip forward. Already kind of feel a little bit of a stretch here. Maybe if this is too intense, you can always lean out to the side, depending on what's right for you. If you need to intensify this, you can always start to rotate that torso towards that trail leg. Once you start to feel a little bit of a stretch here, arms could go down on the ground to help support the upper body and maintain this stretch. And then focus on big, slow breaths. 3 to 4 seconds in through the nose, 4 seconds out through the mouth. Staying in that stretch. Feel free to press pause, but we're getting into it. One more big breath in. Exhale. Trap air in those lower abdominals and brace. If I were to come sucker punch you in the stomach, it's nice and tight. Arms driving into the ground. Lead leg press it into the ground. With all of our body engaged and rock solid, we're gonna start to push this trail leg into the floor with 10% effort first. Feel that coming from the inside, maybe underneath that hip, and then we build 20%, pushing down. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, ramping up to our greatest, safest effort, max intent, driving this trail leg into the floor, keeping that stretch. That knee to the ankle is pressing into the ground. Think about rotating this femur to drive that leg back in front. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, winding down that intensity. 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Now, reverse, staying in that same position, try to peel that heel up off the ground. That effort's coming from the outside hip pocket right here. Try to lift the heel up off the floor. Rotating this femur internally. Lift, lift, lift. Press with the arms, press with that lead leg. Keep that intensity. See if you can make that hip cramp. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Slowly let that effort go. Winding down. Big, slow breaths. Going back to our sideline position, we're going to work hip cars, 4 reps, left and right, and getting into it. If you have another yoga block or if you have a water bottle at the top, you can always place it behind your low back, and that'll give you a little bit of external feedback if you start to move from other places than just from the hips. We don't want to be moving from our spine. All right, getting into it. Starting with that first rep, driving up towards our chest. Keeping it close, we start to lift away from the floor. Hit that roadblock. We rotate, scraping the heel. Back and up at the same time, reaching, reaching, reaching. Slowly lowering that leg down towards the floor. And then we're stacking back up. And this is a good time to take inventory. Maybe these reps feel a little bit different after all the pushing and pulling. Depending on the intensity, might feel more fatigued. Might feel a little bit easier. Especially these transitions, because that's what we just worked on. Internal and external rotation. So coming out to the side right here, and then we externally rotate. That was our lead leg in the 90-90. And then right here, we transition internal rotation, reaching back. Now that's kind of familiar, right? That's our trail leg in 90-90. Here we go, last 4 reps of our hip cars on our right side. So remember, if we start to cheat and we try to move from other joints other than our target joint, like our right hip right now, that's not ideal, right? I mean, in everyday life, that's okay. And done.